Hello, I'm Kala, and I never imagined I'd be standing here telling you this story. One day, I woke up to find my husband had moved in with his mistress, and I had no idea. But what hurt more wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way he manipulated every part of our life together. And just when I thought I couldn't take anymore, I served him divorce papers, right at his workplace, before his big comeback. Ever wonder what happens when someone decides to stop playing nice? You're about to find out. The morning he vanished, Asheville was frozen still. The kind of cold that clings to your skin even inside, as though the air had absorbed some hidden grief. I woke up alone, not that unusual these past weeks, but this time it felt final. The bed was perfectly made on his side, his pillow untouched, and then I saw them, his keys, sitting dead center like a period at the end of a sentence I didn't want to read. I reached for them with hesitation, like they might burn. I said his name once, then louder. Nothing answered back except the hum of the refrigerator in the next room and the sound of my own heartbeat. I stood up slowly, feet cold against the hardwood, and moved to the closet. Empty, not half empty, not just he packed a bag, completely terrifyingly empty. His suits, his shoes, his ties, all gone. The hangers still swayed slightly as if they hadn't yet accepted the absence. I just stood there, heart knocking at my ribs, wondering how silence could feel so cruel. The first thing I did was check the laundry room. Gone. Then the garage. Empty. His tool chest, his gym bag, his cologne from the shelf above the washer. Everything had been extracted like I was a patient under surgery, and he was the scalpel. I dialed his number with a kind of robotic grace. I expected voicemail, but he picked up. Yeah? He sounded like he was ordering coffee. Wendell, where are you? There was a beat, then he said flatly, I moved out. A click. He hung up. No apology, no explanation, not even the decency of a dramatic goodbye, just silence again, deafening in its casual cruelty. I stood there in the middle of my kitchen, still holding the phone, hand shaking but not from the cold. Rage started as a whisper in my stomach, curled up like a snake stretching its coils. That's when I saw it, just sitting there on the counter, half buried under old junk mail and a faded church bulletin, a USB. I don't know what made me grab it. Maybe desperation, maybe instinct. I plugged it into the laptop we shared, the one he hadn't bothered to take. There were voice memos, dozens of them, some titled with dates, others just numbers. I clicked the first one, laughter, her voice, light, girlish, breathy like a high school crush, then Wendell's, low and satisfied. She still thinks we're working things out, he chuckled. It's honestly pathetic. I froze. Another file. She made meatloaf again, he groaned. It's like she's trying to sedate me with nostalgia. I clicked more. They talked about me like I was background noise. A joke. A tired act waiting to be taken off stage. He left me the USB on purpose. I knew it. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. A game. A psychological landmine. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked into the bathroom, shut the door, and locked it behind me. My reflection looked back at me, hollow and unfamiliar. The skin beneath my eyes had shadows like thumbprints, like something had tried to press the life out of me during the night. 6 months ago, Wendell said I was too sensitive. Last month, I found a receipt in his car for a dinner in Atlanta, when he was supposedly on a men's retreat. And 2 weeks ago, he suggested we start communicating less to reconnect spiritually. And God help me, I bought it. I wasn't crazy, I whispered. He wanted me to doubt myself. I slid to the floor, back against the tub. My fingers shook as I deleted the audio files one by one, until I stopped at the last one. I saved it. Just one, just in case. Just to remember who I was really dealing with. He thought I'd fold, that I'd cry into his old flannel and pray for reconciliation. But this isn't 1997, and I'm not that girl anymore. I looked back into the mirror. You're not the one disappearing. Not this time. The house didn't just feel empty. It felt evacuated, like someone had yanked the soul out and left the bones standing. I poured coffee without tasting it, fed the dog without looking at her. The sound of kibble hitting the bowl used to make her tail wag in that uncontrollable, joyful way. This morning, she barely stirred. Maybe she knew too. Animals always seem to. I didn't check my phone. The messages from the church, the prayer circles, the "we're here if you need anything," they felt like little daggers wrapped in platitudes. People said the right things, but silence? Silence says the truth. The doorbell rang just past 10. Ruth. She stood there in her Sunday coat and lipstick that didn't quite match. Her hands held a Tupperware box, muffins of course, banana nut, his favorite. I just thought, you could use something warm. I let her in because it was easier than refusing. We sat across from each other like strangers who had once known how to love the same God. She didn't touch her coffee, neither did I. I knew, she said finally. No preamble, no cushioning. My eyes didn't move. I kept staring at the chipped corner of the countertop behind her. I waited for her to take it back, to say she meant something else. I knew about the other woman, she said, softer now. For a while. How long? My voice cracked like a bone under weight. A few months. I thought maybe it would pass. I didn't want to cause disruption. You had just started your women's ministry again. I laughed. A single bitter sound. It startled even me. You didn't want to disrupt the church, I said. So you let him disrupt my life instead. Ruth looked down, folding and unfolding a paper napkin. He said he wasn't going to leave you. Well, he did. She set the muffin box on the table like it weighed more than she could carry. I'm sorry. No, she wasn't. Not enough. She left 20 minutes later without finishing her coffee. Said something about choir practice. Didn't meet my eyes at the door. I stood there a long while after she left. Then I walked to the window and stared at the snow melting on the front walk. And the memory came back, like fog rolling over the mountain pass. It was in early fall. We had just finished a Saturday cleanup event at the church, and Ruth stood beside me while I packed leftover sandwiches into Ziplocs. She said it quietly while wiping her hands. Not everything that shines in the church is blessed. At the time, I'd laughed. A harmless old lady proverb, I'd thought. One of her subtle critiques about modern worship music or yoga being allowed in the fellowship hall. But she wasn't talking about yoga. She was talking about Wendell. And I missed it. I missed it because I wanted to believe in the good. Because I thought somehow, if I was kind and patient and faithful enough, things would right themselves. Because I didn't want to look like the fool I now knew I was. I spent the next hour cleaning the kitchen. Not just wiping counters, scrubbing like I was trying to erase fingerprints left in betrayal. The sink water ran red from a cut I didn't even notice on my palm. I stared at the muffin tray Ruth left behind. Then I threw it into the trash, lid and all. Why do women always feel the need to be understanding? I muttered. I opened my laptop, the one he hadn't taken, the one still filled with emails from our church, our mortgage lender, our joint Amazon account. I typed in, Divorce, North Carolina. I didn't even blink. I didn't flinch. I bookmarked the link. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The wind picked up outside. The trees scraped against the windows like something trying to get in. I shut the laptop and whispered into the silence. You're not the only one who can walk away. The lot was nearly empty when I stepped out of the grocery store, juggling a paper bag and my purse. The sky had that pale, washed-out hue of winter in Asheville, bleached gray like something drained. I remember the wind catching my scarf, the sound of a toddler screaming somewhere behind me, and the way my steps slowed as I scanned the asphalt. The SUV wasn't there. I froze. No, blinked, checked again. Maybe I parked on the other side. I circled once, then twice, the cold tightening around my chest. A man in a flannel jacket loading oranges into his trunk looked over and said, They towed a silver one about 10 minutes ago. Lady next to me said it got repossessed. The bag slipped from my hand. The can of cat food rolled under a sedan. Repossession. That word stuck in my head like a tooth in rotting fruit. I got home somehow. I couldn't tell you how I drove. I called the bank from the kitchen table, still wearing my coat. My voice cracked once when I gave them my account number. But I didn't cry. Not yet. The woman on the other end was polite, robotic. Yes, ma'am. The 2018 Honda CR-V was collateral on a secured loan from last year. The loan defaulted. Repossession notice was mailed 3 weeks ago. No, I said, each syllable carved from disbelief. I didn't take out that loan. Your name is on the paperwork, she replied. It was a joint application. I felt it before I saw it. my heart pounding not from panic but recognition. Wendell. Of course, he used my name, my credit, my damn trust. Was this loan signed electronically? I asked. Yes, IP address on file matches a residence listed under both parties. A cold sweat ran down my spine. I hung up, calmly, and then I screamed. I screamed so hard the dog hid under the couch and my throat tore at the edges. I threw the phone across the room, then ran to the bedroom. The drawers were still half full of paperwork. I ripped through them like a woman searching for air. Retirement files, investment logins, password notes. I logged into my retirement account. The screen flickered before showing an alert. Multiple failed login attempts. One successful. A form submitted for balance inquiry. Requesting to update beneficiary. From someone claiming to be me, with my social security number. No. I called the retirement office, waited through 9 minutes of classical music. When someone finally answered, I told them everything in clipped, shaking words. Ma'am, the form was flagged. It didn't go through, she said. But you'll want to freeze your account access immediately. I did, with trembling fingers. When I ended the call, I didn't move for a long time. I sat on the floor of the bedroom I once shared with the man who now tried to erase me from paper. He didn't just leave me, he tried to make me disappear. I curled up against the dresser and cried into a pillow, biting down on the cloth so Milo wouldn't hear. But he did. Of course he did. A soft knock at the door. Mom? I wiped my face, swallowed the lump in my throat. I'm okay, baby. He pushed the door open and walked in, holding his worn stuffed elephant. He crawled beside me without a word, then leaned into my shoulder. I miss Grandpa, he whispered, but I like it better when you're not sad. My throat closed again, but this time, not from grief, from resolve. After he fell asleep curled next to me, I got up. I turned on the printer, pulled out every account document, highlighted account numbers, underlined overdue notices, hole-punched pages until my hand cramped. I labeled a binder in black Sharpie, The Undoing of Wendell. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about survival, about war. I walked into the garage. It echoed, empty, cold, soulless. You took the car, I said quietly, but I'm coming for everything else. I picked up my phone and dialed the number I'd bookmarked days ago. Clerk of Court, Buncombe County. The pan sizzled with butter and garlic, a distraction I clung to like a lifeline. Milo sat at the kitchen table behind me, crayons scattered, his drawings a world untouched by betrayal. The air was thick with the scent of dinner and something else, an unease that didn't belong. The phone rang. I dried my hands and reached for it, expecting a robocall or maybe Ruth again. It was Wendell. Hey, he said, like we still shared groceries and lazy Saturdays. How've things been? I didn't answer. I couldn't. He kept talking, his tone nauseatingly light. Just figuring things out, you know. Needed some space. I think once things settle, we'll be okay again. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the counter's edge. He spoke like nothing happened. Like the closet wasn't empty. Like the loan wasn't real. Like I hadn't found that audio file where he laughed about me like I was a forgotten object in the attic. Divorce? He scoffed softly, like the word offended him. We don't need to go that far. Let's just breathe. I know you're upset, but you always overthink things. It wasn't just his words, it was the softness, that manufactured calm, the same voice he used when convincing me to co-sign on a car we didn't need, or telling Milo Santa wouldn't come if he kept whining. Now, he was painting reality with pastels, rewriting the story while I was still stuck bleeding through the first chapters. I want to see Milo, he added, almost as an afterthought. He's still mine too. I said nothing. I couldn't trust my voice not to betray the scream swelling behind my teeth. He ended the call gently. Talk soon. Don't overreact, Calla. Click. I stood there a long time, dinner forgotten, until Milo tugged at my sleeve and asked for more carrots. Later that night, I replayed the voicemail. His words curled around my ribs like wire. There was no apology, no recognition, just a script written by a man trying to edit out the damage he'd done. Something was wrong, wronger than I thought. The next morning, I was brushing my teeth when I heard Milo laughing from the living room. When I walked in, he was holding my phone, swiping through voice memos. Is this Grandpa? he asked before I could stop him. A voice began to play. It was Wendell. She's pathetic. Still thinks I love her, he was saying. I'm just letting her down slow. Keeps her easier to control. She thinks we're on a break or something. It's adorable. Laughter followed. A woman's. I froze. Milo stared at me, confused. Why's he saying that? I grabbed the phone. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. He recorded this. Or she did. I didn't know, didn't care. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated humiliation. He wanted me to hear it. He wanted me to unravel. I deleted the voicemail from last night, the one where he spoke like nothing happened, but I saved the memo. He wasn't gaslighting me, I whispered to myself. He was engineering my humiliation. I printed a transcript, slid it behind the bank statements, titled the new tab in the binder. Recorded admissions. There was a strange calm after that, like the moment a bone resets, not painless, but necessary. I sat at the table Milo had drawn dinosaurs on the night before and emailed the memo to myself. Subject line, evidence. He wanted to build the story, but I'm the one who's going to publish the ending. I stood in front of the mirror, the morning light cutting clean lines across my bedroom floor. The woman staring back at me wasn't soft around the edges anymore. She wore a navy blazer, a subtle red lip, and her curls pulled back with intention. I hadn't dressed like this in months, maybe years. The envelope on the nightstand called to me. Inside, 3 crisp copies of the divorce petition, notarized, signed, final. He ended our marriage in whispers, in shadows. I was going to end it in full view. I didn't tremble. Not when I put on my boots, not when I clipped on my earrings, not even when I whispered to my reflection. He wanted to humiliate me quietly, so I'll answer him loudly. The store was packed. Of course it was. It always was on Fridays. I waited by the customer service desk, my heart a stone I refused to acknowledge. I could see the fluorescent lights bouncing off the polished floors, reflecting everything except regret. Can I help you? A teenage employee asked, bored. I'm here for Wendell Brooks, I said, cool as glass. Just tell him Cala's up front. He came within minutes, still in uniform, smiling like he expected reconciliation. That smile died the second he saw the envelope in my hand. I stepped forward, steady, deliberate. This is your real 2-week notice, I said, placing it in his hand. The register nearby paused mid-beep. A cart screeched to a stop. Voices hushed. A dozen heads turned, curiosity blooming like weeds. Wendell's fingers tightened on the envelope. Cala, what the hell is this? He whispered. What it looks like, I replied, smiling for the first time in days. You walked out quietly. I'm ending this on the record. He opened his mouth, maybe to lie, maybe to plead, but then a voice rang out behind us. Wait, Cala? I turned. Trina. Her hair was pinned up high, her name tag askew. She stood frozen, one hand hovering over a barcode scanner, the other clutching a bag of grapes. Her eyes flicked between the envelope and Wendell. That was when it hit. All at once. The way she blanched. The way he recoiled. I thought you said she was moving on, she muttered. That she wouldn't do anything crazy. I didn't speak. I didn't owe them a damn word. I turned and walked. He followed, of course. Called after me. Cala, just stop for a second. Can we talk about this like adults? I didn't break stride. Didn't glance back. He wanted a moment. I gave him one. And I didn't owe him closure. I owed myself a clean ending. I made it to my car, breath caught somewhere between a sob and a laugh. The envelope was gone, but I still held the power, and that was heavier in my hand than any paper ever was. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I noticed a mural I'd never seen before, 2 women shoulder to shoulder in the eye of a storm. They weren't running. They weren't hiding. They stood tall. I pulled over and just stared at it for a while, and then I laughed, loud, real, guttural. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere he hadn't touched. That wasn't closure, I whispered to no one. That was an opening. That night I got a voicemail. Wendell, sobbing. The auction lot smelled of frost and exhaust. A chill slid down the back of my neck as I stepped between rows of metallic silence. Cars lined up like artifacts, each holding a story someone lost. I signed in under my maiden name. Not a disguise, a reclamation. And there she was. My SUV sat 3 rows in, dented slightly from careless handling, her paint dulled, license plates stripped. It didn't matter. That was my car, the one I'd worked to pay off, the one he used to rob me blind, the one they took like it didn't have a pulse. The auctioneer barked prices like gunshots. I didn't flinch. When the bid reached $2,700, I raised my hand. Going once, going twice, mine. The sound of the gavel was nothing short of divine. Back home, Milo danced on the driveway while I backed the SUV into the garage. I ran my hand along her hood, already planning the color. Not black. Not anymore. She needed something that told a story. I picked metallic blue, something fluid, something born from the ashes of the old. A friend from church helped me repaint it in his shop. We didn't talk much, just the hum of the machine and my steady hands sanding down what used to be Wendell's pride. I replaced the license plate myself. 6 new letters. A silent message only I understood. Later, Milo stood by the fender, rubbing his fingers over the new shine. Is it really ours again? I knelt beside him. Ours more than ever. Sunday afternoon came with the kind of stillness that dares you to act. I dressed simply. White tee, sunglasses. No announcement. I drove. His street was quiet, but the moment I turned the corner, Trina appeared on the porch, holding a mug, laughing into a phone. Her smile faltered the second she recognized the car. Wendell stepped out moments later, squinting like the sun betrayed him. He saw me, and for once I made no effort to look away. I didn't slow down, didn't flip him off, didn't smile. I just let them see it. Me, the car, the silence. Let them wonder what it meant. I circled the block, took the long way home. When I parked in front of the church that evening, I just sat there, hands on the wheel. The last time I sat in this seat, I was crying. Tonight I wasn't broken. I was still and whole. This car doesn't carry his ghost anymore, I whispered. It carried mine. The next morning, I found a letter slipped through my mail slot. Wendell's attorney. Thinly veiled threats about co-owned property and agreed financial separation. I smiled, slow and quiet. He was playing chess, and I'd just taken back my queen. It was supposed to be just another morning. I poured my coffee, set down 2 slices of toast, and began sifting through the mail. Junk flyers, a dental reminder, and then an envelope from the IRS. I nearly tossed it, assuming it was a notice or tax form, but the words inside made my spine turn to ice. Your 2023 joint tax refund was processed and deposited successfully. My breath caught. I hadn't filed anything last year. Wendell had, and he'd done it behind my back. Again. He didn't just take my name. He took the history attached to it. Years of bills paid on time, receipts filed, deductions earned. Every spreadsheet I used to build the life we had, now cashed in without a word. I felt something shift, not the crack of heartbreak, something colder, harder, like steel sliding into place. I called my attorney that afternoon. She didn't blink. He failed to disclose the return? That's marital fraud. We can go after him. I handed her everything. Copies of the IRS letter, my previous filings, our separation paperwork. It all lined up. He'd hidden the refund, claimed it, and spent it before the ink on our divorce had dried. This time, I said, voice like gravel, he doesn't get to vanish. She looked at me, nodding slowly, and said something that caught me off guard. I want to depose his mother. Luann. A week later, I sat in her modest living room, the scent of overbrewed tea filling the air. She didn't greet me, just handed me a flash drive and lowered herself into a faded armchair like it took everything she had. I should have told you this a long time ago. The audio played on my laptop. Wendell's voice was sharp, angry. You think you know what love is, you nosy old liar? Calla was just convenient. She was a good front, clean, God-fearing, boring. There was a long silence. You used her social to steal money, Luann finally whispered in the clip. That's a federal crime. You think I care? He shouted. She still thinks I loved her. That's the joke. I closed the laptop slowly. There were no tears left, just a silence inside me that hummed like voltage. By the end of the week, my attorney had filed the paperwork. We had the timeline, the bank trail, the recording. I brought a copy of the audio to my church. I didn't ask for pity. I asked for witnesses, for backbone. The board of elders voted unanimously to stand with me. Ruth, the same Ruth who once looked away, placed a firm hand on my shoulder as if to say, "Never again." I sat in my car afterward, watching the sun cut through the stained glass windows. My fingers gripped the steering wheel, calm. "They say revenge is best served cold," I murmured. "I say it's best served with receipts." The next morning I got the call. Wendell had been served. The hearing was set for early next month. The judge, Melissa Patterson, my former mentor in the city, she once told me, "The only thing worse than silence is pretending it didn't hurt." I smiled. Now he would have to speak. Easter Sunday. The church was buzzing, a blend of festive cheer and a strange undercurrent of tension. The pews were filled. Neighbors who'd whispered behind closed doors, old friends, and even Trina, standing at the back with her face carefully neutral. Wendell's past allies were scattered in their usual seats, eyes darting around, searching for the familiar presence they all feared would return. I stood at the pulpit, my hands trembling as I adjusted my notes. Milo sat with my mother in the front row, his small face a beacon of innocence in the midst of all the chaos that had unfolded. "Today," I began, my voice steady, "I want to talk about healing, about betrayal and survival. We all carry burdens. We all have our scars." The room was still. Even Trina, with her bright red lips and disinterested gaze, was frozen. I wasn't speaking directly about Wendell, not yet, but they all knew, didn't they? The congregation shifted in their seats, trying to hold on to their facades. "Some of us," I continued, "hold our pain in silence, thinking that forgiveness will come in its own time. But forgiveness doesn't heal. Truth does." A quiet murmur ran through the room. I looked at them, one by one, as the weight of my words settled in. They were expecting me to ask for understanding, for empathy. But I wasn't asking for that. I was asking for clarity. As I stepped down from the pulpit, my heart pounding in my chest, I felt the eyes of the room on me, heavy, uncomfortable. And then, just as I thought I could breathe, a voice broke the silence. A woman stood up from the back of the church, her movements hesitant, but her voice shaking with raw truth. "I'm May," she said, her hands clutching her sweater tightly. "And I've been where you are, Calla. I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one who had been manipulated by him." A collective gasp filled the room. I saw Ruth's hand clutch her chest, her face pale. Luann, sitting near the back, slowly turned her head away. May's words echoed through the room, each syllable a crack in the dam that had held all of this in for so long. "I thought I was alone. He made me feel like I was nothing," May's voice wavered. "But I'm not. I'm not alone anymore." Tears filled my eyes. It wasn't pity. It was shared liberation. I walked back up to May, silently joining her at the front. I took her hand in mine, holding it tightly, as if telling her that she wasn't alone anymore either. The church was filled with soft sobs, some women weeping openly, others silent, their faces set in grim recognition. One man walked out, his footsteps echoing like a distant warning. As I stood there holding May's hand, I realized something. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was all of us. And we were stronger now, together. The church board announced an emergency meeting after the service. Wendell's involvement with the church's funds and counseling records would be reviewed. There were murmurs of accountability. Afterwards, I was approached by local reporters, their cameras rolling. One of them spoke in hushed tones. "This is bigger than just your divorce. This is going to open up a lot more than just your marriage." I could feel it, the ripple, the shockwaves spreading beyond the walls of this church. It wasn't just my fight anymore, and I wasn't going to back down. That evening, as I sat with Milo on the couch, his small voice broke the silence. "Are you a hero now, Mom?" he asked innocently, staring up at me with wide eyes. I looked down at him, unsure of how to respond. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. I simply smiled and whispered, "I told the truth, Milo. That's enough." But as I tucked him into bed, my phone buzzed. An email. Anonymous. The subject line, "You should have stayed quiet." I clicked open the message. It was short, to the point. Now that you've made your move, you'll wish you hadn't. You have no idea what you've unleashed. My breath hitched, but I didn't respond. Not yet. The silence of the evening was broken, but there was still more to come. The soft hum of the coffee maker was the only sound in the kitchen, the morning light streaming through the blinds, casting a quiet warmth over everything. I moved with a calm rhythm, laying out the cereal for Milo and preparing his breakfast. There was no weight in my chest today, no knot in my stomach, just peace. Milo hummed a little tune, then broke the silence. Mom, they asked me at church if you're going to speak again next Sunday. I paused, the spoon halfway to his bowl. Maybe, but not yet. Some silences need to settle before you speak over them. The words felt heavier than I expected, but they were true. Some things, some feelings, just needed time to heal before they could be spoken aloud. He nodded thoughtfully, his small hands fiddling with his toy car. Okay, Mom. As I sat down at the table with him, I felt the soft warmth of this new rhythm settling in. There was no panic, no feeling that everything was falling apart. Only this. The scene shifted. Wendell stood at a Greyhound bus station, a dark suitcase clutched in his hands. The morning sun cast long shadows on the concrete, but he stood still, waiting. No one came. No one waved. No one called out his name. He took a step forward, then pulled his phone from his pocket. He dialed a number, but before the first ring, he hung up, staring at the phone for a long moment. In his mind, a voice played, "You're free now, just like me, but freedom doesn't erase the debt." No fanfare, no audience, no celebration of his escape, just silence, as he stood alone in that moment. The weight of everything he had done and failed to do settled in his chest. He was free, but there was nothing left to him. No one cared to say goodbye. Milo was outside now, at the park, playing with a new group of friends. He was older, too old too fast, and yet still so young. I watched from the bench, my heart both proud and heavy. "Why don't we talk about Grandpa anymore?" he asked, his small voice breaking through the hum of the playground. I kneeled down beside him, my hands resting gently on his shoulders. Because some stories need to end before they can be remembered without pain. He stared at me for a moment, eyes full of questions that I didn't have the answers to yet, and then he shrugged, turning back to his friends. I watched him, my heart swelling with love and loss all at once. This was our new beginning, his story and mine, and it was better this way. I sat in a cafe later that day, my journal open in front of me. I'd been writing, trying to capture everything that had happened in some way that made sense, but it felt impossible. Nothing could make sense of what I'd lived through. And yet, as I wrote, I realized that I wasn't writing for him anymore. I wasn't writing for Wendell. I was writing for me, for the woman who had survived, who had rebuilt, who had reclaimed her life. A woman passed by my table, pausing for a moment. She was older, mid-40s, with kind eyes. May. She gave me a small smile, no words, just a silent acknowledgement of what we both knew. She had shared her truth in front of the congregation today, and in that moment I understood her completely. She was one of us. I never wanted to be brave, I wrote in my journal, a quiet whisper of truth to myself. But now that I am, I won't apologize for it. I closed the journal with a snap, my fingers brushing over the leather cover. It was finished. Outside, the first raindrop splashed against the window. The rain came in sheets, dark and heavy, but I didn't flinch. Some storms were meant to be faced unarmed. I stood up, smoothing down my coat, and walked outside. The sound of the rain was deafening now, drowning out everything else. As I approached my car, my eyes fell on a piece of paper stuck under the windshield wiper. It was a note. I tore it free, the rain soaking the paper as I pulled it open. There was no return address, just one line. Redemption is never free. I stared at the words for a moment, and then, without thinking, I ripped the note in two, my fingers shaking slightly as I let the pieces fall to the ground. The weight of its words lingered, but I didn't let it consume me. I stepped into my car, the rain hammering against the roof. As I drove off, the streets blurry in my rearview mirror, I realized that the past was no longer something I carried. It was something I had lived through. I was free now. just like him. But my redemption wasn't his to steal. As I reflect on everything that has happened, everything I've been through, one thing stands clear. Healing is not a destination, but a journey. Life doesn't always give us the closure we crave, but it does give us the power to rebuild, to reclaim our stories, and to create new beginnings. The pain may never fully disappear, but with time, you learn how to carry it, how to transform it into something stronger. No one else has the right to define your worth, especially not the ones who take from you. Whether it's love, trust, or money, when they take, it's not a reflection of you, but of them. What matters is how you rise, how you choose to move forward. You don't need anyone's approval to own your narrative. So my question to you is, what are you reclaiming in your life? Are you holding on to the things that no longer serve you? And if you are, what would it look like to let them go? If this story touched your heart or resonated with you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, let me know where you're watching from, or even just share your thoughts on how we can all reclaim the power over our own lives. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's always more to learn, and we're just getting started. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. I'll see you in the next one.